Well, thanks everybody. I see the chat filling in. Appreciate you guys doing that. So Ken asked me to fill in for him today. If you just missed the bantering about that. So I'm an old Navy guy. Ken, of course, is an Army Ranger. So I took it as a mountain of trust that he would entrust me with this group in spite of those different backgrounds. But it brings diversity to you today. We talked about what topic he would like to go over and kind of narrowed it down to talking about leadership track, the leadership pipeline. How do you get that set up and ready? Why would you want to do that? So that's what we're going to talk about. The format today, I've sat in on a few of Ken's and we tend to run these the same way. So there's going to be some discussion here. We'll be doing, I'm anticipating 2 breakout rooms. We'll randomize it. We'll try and put 3 or 4 people in each room, have some discussion about a topic that I will throw out, and then we'll get back together and discuss that. So you will wind up in a breakout room, and hopefully you're in a position where you can interact with folks and discuss things. All right. Any questions? Anything we want to talk about before we get started here? Okay, you guys are all being really good. You're all on mute. I'm sure you know that leaves a little challenge to me because I get no buzz in the room. And especially if you're not sharing video, I can't see confused looks or anything. So let's talk about selecting leaders along the track. And let me just kind of preface this with a little foundational philosophy here. In every organization I've seen, including the Navy, and I talked to Ken, he says the same thing's true in the Army. There's basically 2 things that come together to make an organization work well. And that's basically the how we're going to do it. There is a set process for the way we're going to run our business or our organization. And then there's the who, the people, which make it absolutely the difference. And I told Ken, my story for this is talking about how in the Navy will build 25 submarines that are all identical to each other, physically identical, mostly made in the same shipyard. I mean, you could walk from one to the other and maybe there's a slight change in floor tile color or something, but they are identical. And yet, when you look at those 20 submarines over time, some of them are the hot boats that are always out chasing the Russians and winning presidential unit citations and things like that. And some of them are struggling to get underway. Welded to the pier, we call it. So they're the mess. They're not the hot boats. And what's the difference? Well, the difference is the people side, the leadership that happens. Physically, they're identical. The way they operate is identical. All the Navy regulations and SOPs and stuff are identical, 99.5% from one ship to the next. The difference is the leadership, that last 0.5% on procedure and 100% on people engagement of the crew. Ken assures me that you could say the same thing about the Army. Dave, help me out if that's not true. He said, you know, you'll have a division, you'll have all these different battalions. They draw from the same resource pool of people. They have the same SOPs, whatever you call them in the Army. And yet some are really great and some struggle. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely agree.
Yep. And so to me, it's where those 2, they obviously intersect. I mean, those are not separate things. They fuse together a lot. And where they fuse is the magic. And when they fuse well, you get that culture of inspired and disciplined execution. And it's a much happier place to work. The results that they turn out are a whole lot better. It's way more predictable, sustainable. We're going to talk about sustainability a lot today from a leadership perspective. And it's just a great place to work. These are the places that are going to show up on your top 25 places to be. So here's a discussion point. This isn't a breakout room, but I would like you to come off mute and throw your ideas out. Peter Drucker once said, going with this idea here, he said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. What did he mean?
You can have the best strategy out there, but if you don't have the culture to back it up, the strategy won't last or even begin.
Yeah, amen to that. So
Yeah,
Chris, you got anything to add to that? I think Dave summarized it well. Have you seen that in practice?
Sadly, yes. If you try to execute a new strategy, but the culture of the folks in the business don't support it, you don't get off the ground. So,
Amen to
mean,
that.
Dave's summary was excellent.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, I mean, if you've been working over 15 or 20 years, chances are you've lived through both sides of that, where culture ate strategy, or it supported it massively. Things took off and it became that culture of inspired and disciplined execution. Anybody else got anything they'd like to share? We'll go on. I find it amazing, but I find many of the organizations I've been in, starting with the Navy and through some of the Fortune 500s, do a pretty good job. They understand the importance of developing their leadership team, and they have pretty good programs for trying to make that happen. I'm amazed as I get working more and more with middle-sized and smaller businesses. Some of them get it, and some of them don't get it at all. It's like touchy-feely, HRE kind of stuff, and it's kind of shocking to me. But I think it's pretty clear that you need leaders if you want to grow. I got a client today who's getting ready to grow. They're going to expand their territory into a new state, a big new state. And that was a big topic of discussion at the last leadership team meeting that I facilitated for him, was where are we going to get the people to run this state? I mean, we can't just dump this all on the people that are already busy. And it was a big topic of discussion. So you need leaders to be able to grow, and they've been working at it, but they're a little bit behind the 8 ball on that. Another reason that you see, especially with small businesses, is a lot of times that one person who hasn't done a good job delegating, hasn't developed a team he can delegate to, has to carry all the burden of all the decisions, which becomes a choke point, which slows everything down, which inhibits growth. And it also means that one person can't go on vacation. They can't really get away, which isn't good for them personally either. So you need leaders. And not surprisingly, there's studies out there that say that in big studies, looking at businesses, the ones that have mature leadership pipeline, leadership development systems, churn out significantly higher sales per employee, significantly higher profits, gross profits, like 10% higher, and they're much more adaptable to change. And so this isn't just like, it sounds like it makes sense. There's actually hard data proving this. And the other thing that you see is that in those businesses, they are better places to work. They're not the places you go and get ground up every day and come home all stressed out and your health suffers and everything else. It is possible to have a very high functioning business where people are pretty engaged. They enjoy their work. The customers can tell they enjoy their work, which helps sales. And it becomes one of those best places to work in the community you live in. So let's talk about how that happens a little bit. The big thing is you got to figure out who should be getting into a leadership position. So Dave's nodding here. You know this, right? What typically happens in my experience in the civilian world is somebody comes out of college or a trade school or something, but they come out with these technical skills to maybe sell, to do accounting, to do engineering, to do something. And they work for a while and they catch the boss's eye that, wow, they are really, really good at this. We really like them. If the organization's working well, there's a discussion that starts to happen somewhere in there, maybe years 5 to 10, somewhere in a bigger company. And they say, what are you more interested in, the technical track or the leadership track? Because the two jobs start to become very different. And a lot of people say, you know what, I mean, I used to run some big global engineering teams. A lot of the engineers will go, you know what, I'm an engineer because I love engineering. I love the science. I love the technology. I love everything about it. I have no interest in going off and kind of starting to lose track of that because I'm spending more time, working through conflict and budgets and stuff like that. And so that's great. We always tried to make sure we had an amazing technical track for them to continue to grow in, to expand their skills, to get deeper and better at the things they were doing, so that somebody that was a 20-year engineer had really had 20 years of experience, not the old saying is 1 year repeated 20 times. The ones who said, you know what, I do like the business side of this. I like the people side of this. I'm interested in the leadership track. Now we can start working through programs and stuff to develop them. There's three basic things that have to come together for that to work, right? They have to understand what they're getting into. That's the get, right? They have to get that, yeah, you're going to be spending less time doing the accounting or sitting in front of a customer doing sales or whatever, and you're going to be spending more time working on the business and with the people and taking care of the people that are doing the work, right? So they have to understand that. And once they understand that, they have to want that. And, that means they're willing to do it, to make that trade-off in their career, to go that direction. And frankly, as senior leaders, we have to look and go, are they capable of doing this? Do they seem to have, some of these, the grit, the emotional intelligence, a lot of these kind of characteristics that you'd want in a leader to be able to do. And you have to make sure that, the values are aligned with the business and all that. And if that all comes together, great, start working in there. But it's a very different job. We have to realize that leadership job is very different. Now, what happens, unfortunately, way too often in Gallup polling, it's like 2/3 of the people that take this, they think they're going down the leadership track. The company might think that, but it's for all the wrong reasons. It's not because they get it, want it, they're capable of doing it. Instead, it's because, well, if I ever want to get promoted again, I've got to become a manager. I've been here the longest, it's my turn. Or the company may feel like that. Fred's been here 15 years, nobody else has been here longer than 5. It's Fred's turn, that kind of thing. Sometimes it's just because somebody's thinking, well, they're really great at that function. So therefore, if I make them a manager of that function, they'll be great at pulling the others along. But that's often not the case, as you know. And then sometimes there's really bad reasons, like they just think they could get to control and bark orders and be directive and things like that. Or they're buddies, there's some nepotism, there's something like that. All those are bad reasons. And typically, folks that make or are pushed into a leadership role for any of those bad reasons become what we call toxic leaders, right? They're not good at leading. They don't take care of their people. They do a lot of things like micromanage and criticize and yell at people and all the stuff that is toxic leadership. So that's something to avoid. So remember this little decision pipe and how that works. We're going to talk about that more later. And let me introduce one more thing as we consider who should be a leader, and then we're going to do our first breakout room. So the first thing we're going to consider is who would you think has the most potential in your organization? And do you have those people? Or do you think, oh, I got to go outside to hire leaders? I just don't have them here. I've never developed them or something like that. And then the reality is there's a couple of things that come into play. One is, yeah, you need to look at the results. Were they good at selling or engineering or accounting or something? But you have to look at how they did it too. Did they step on people? Was it just dead bodies along the way? Do they show that they're committed to the values of the organization along the way? So let me show you a little video here from Simon Sinek. And then we'll do our first breakout room. Something to think about here. Okay. And if you can't hear this or see it or something, let me know, but I think I got everything shared here.
I've worked with the Navy SEALs, and I asked them, like, how do you pick like the guys that go on SEAL Team 6, right? Because they're the best, the best, the best, the best. And they drew a graph for me, and on one side they wrote the word performance, and on the other side they wrote the word trust. The way they define the terms is performance on the battlefield and performance off the battlefield. So this is your skills. This is, did you make your quarterly earnings, whatever, however you want to translate it, right? Performance, it's traditional. This is, how are you off the battlefield? What kind of person are you? The way they put it is, I may trust you with my life, but do I trust you with my money and my wife? This is what they told me. Nobody wants this person, the low performer of low trust, of course. Of course, everybody wants this person, the high performer of high trust, of course. What they learned is that this person, the high performer of low trust, is a toxic leader and a toxic team member. And they would rather have a medium performer of high trust, sometimes even a low performer of high trust, it's a relative scale, over this person. This is the highest performing organization on the planet, and this person is more important than this person. And the problem in business is we have lopsided metrics. We have 1,000,001 metrics to measure someone's performance and negligible to no metrics to measure someone's trustworthiness. And so what we end up doing is promoting or bonusing toxicity in our businesses, which is bad for the long game because it eventually destroys the whole organization. Go to any team and say, who's the asshole? And they'll... they will all point to the same person. Equally, if you go to any team and say, who do you trust more than anybody else? Who's always got your back? And when the chips are down, they will be there with you. They will also all point to the same person. It's the best gifted natural leader who's creating an environment for everybody else to succeed, and they may not be your most individual highest performer. But that person, you better keep them on your team. I've worked with the Navy SEALs.
All right. So with that being said, we're going to go to our first breakout room, and I'm going to set up, we got 21 people here. Of course, one of them's Ken's not here. I'm going to set up 5 breakout rooms. It'll be random. So there'll be 3 or 4 of you in each room. Here's the question that I would like for you guys to discuss. So those of you who hopefully you're sharing video, you're still, or not sharing video, you're still able to discuss here. What is your organization doing to make sure that you have positive and effective leaders? All right. What is your organization doing to make sure that your people, the working people, have positive, effective leaders, you know, directing and supervising them? Okay. Any questions? So we're going to get back together. It's 20 after right now, seeing your time zone, what hour it is. We'll get back together just about 1:30, and we'll have some discussion about this. Then we'll introduce the whole pipeline topic. We'll have another break. Back. Can everybody hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up. I remember to push the off mute button and all that stuff that automatically kicks in breakout rooms. I heard some really great discussions going on here. So I'm not even going to call out the different breakout rooms. I heard people talking about they didn't have a program at their work. Their company didn't offer any ability to do a tech track that forced people into management. I heard that the companies were trying that, but now decided that didn't work. So they were setting up a tech ladder. It was kind of moving around between rooms. I would love to hear any thoughts that came to you, conclusions, new ideas. Just come off of mute and share.
I'll start. Well, we kind of discussed my company, they do a book club. They started doing a book club about a year ago with leadership books, kind of like the Brene Brown, a lot of right now diversity and inclusion topics. So that's one of the things they do in my group. So they discuss that they are looking for development opportunities, so sending their people to develop to see what tools they might be needing or new ideas that might be out there. And I forgot to mention this, but once you do become a leader in my group, you do get a 12-week program that has been quite researched and put together with different aspects of leadership. The only problem is that that is once you already become a leader, not pre-becoming a leader. So it'd be great to see something, a potential to put people through before they get to that step.
Great. That's a great suggestion. Do you have any influence over that?
Nope.
Are you a member of the book groups?
No. I did once. I did do the Brene Brown, Dare to Lead. That's the one we did.
And do you think that was helpful? Could have been more helpful? What?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, the information that Brene Brown puts out there, not only is it's researched,
Right.
but the way she puts it together and discusses it just makes a lot of sense. So if you are open to new ideas and reflecting on yourself and how you are as a leader, I think it opens a lot of opportunities to improve and create that trust, because I'm huge into trust. Everything just narrows down to trust.
It does. Can I ask, and then I'm going to try and put you on, I appreciate you volunteering. So how much coaching goes on? I mean, in addition to the book group, in addition to development program, is this a topic of conversation between senior leaders and potential?
No, absolutely not. It has actually started from individual contributors pushing to get these things out there. So we have encountered a lot of pushback on ideas and things like that. So it takes a lot. We do have executive sponsors in some of the teams that we have that help. So we have an engagement team, and that has kind of helped push some of the ideas out there. But it's never from the top bottom. It always has to be someone at the bottom pushing things up and finding the right people to get that support.
Okay. Interesting. I'd love some other viewpoints here.
Hey guys, so this is Candace Hernandez. Hi, Andrew. I oversee the leadership development programs at Centerpoint Energy, headquartered out of Houston. And so my poor group, I was telling them I was kind of tailor-made for this question because I oversee all of the different programs that we offer. And we have 5 different programs based on audience level. So we have certain programs that are targeted to, we have transitionary programs for the first time you're a leader or the first time you're a leader of other leaders. Then we have high potential programs, and we have a high potential program for individual contributors before they become a leader. And then we have a high potential program for existing leaders in the company. We also have learning plans and recommended plans for anybody in the company who's just interested in leadership and wants to self-select in to some recommended soft skills training. We also have a program for them. What we find is we use a 9-box talent management rating system for performance management. So we spend a lot of time differentiating between that high potential versus high performer to help our leaders understand what that looks like. And then we tailor these programs to touch on the challenges that those audiences are facing, whether they're in a transitionary program or in a high potential situation.
That's great. That sounds like what I would expect out of a bigger company. In other words, it's well developed, it's thought through. Tell me about the 9 boxes. What makes somebody high potential versus high performing?
There are a variety of descriptors that go into each box to help leaders as they assess their teams.
Mhm.
into where that goes. It's kind of starting as like Simon Sinek was starting his, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of looking like our 9 boxes that they go through. And so where the numbers are on the boxes is not straight across. But what it's really helping us is a high performer is going to be somebody who is a subject matter expert. They are going to get the job done. You can give them heavy workload. They've got the expertise. But when we look at a high potential, we're looking at, can they take on more from a leadership perspective? Can they take on a higher responsibility role? Do they have, kind of to what Simon was talking about, that trust component? How are they with their team? How are they viewed by their peers? How are they viewed? What is their reputation amongst the company?
Mhm.
Have they informally led? Have they shown an interest in leading? How are they involved in their community? Are they involved on committees, on boards? We start to look at all of those items to assess, okay, this is somebody that is ready to take that next step. They don't just believe it, but everyone around them also believes that they're ready to take on additional workload, additional responsibility.
I have a
And
question.
Thank you.
yeah, go for
Yeah.
it.
Candace,
Hi, Harry.
you mentioned, how is their reputation in the company?
Mhm.
Now, how do you measure that with any empirical sense?
It is subjective, but we have talent management review meetings where the HR business partner meets with all the leaders of a specific business organization to have that collective conversation about their people together. So that way, if Harry, you and I are in the same department and I feel really good about somebody on my team, and I want to put them in the box that says that they're a high potential, but your interactions have not shown that, that is your opportunity to share that information.
Yeah.
To where, hey, maybe I'm only seeing one side of them. Or conversely, you may be recognizing somebody on my team that I've overlooked to say, hey, I really feel like Andrew needs to be considered in a higher box, and here's why. And so they have to champion their people and they have to speak up. That's their opportunity to do that. And in fact, we do that every August. So that's happening right now across
That's-
our entire footprint.
That's good. And the bigger companies I've been in that had well-run HR organizations, and congratulations, Candace, it sounds like you guys are pretty well on top of it. I mean, this is business maturity here. This is the mature leadership system that we talked about that earlier, that statistically leads to better sales.
Hey,
per employee.
Cadence, excuse me. Hey, Cadence, you are mentioning like a rating system. Can you elaborate more about how you categorize it, rating system?
Well, I'm having trouble hearing you on the audio. It was like I was getting some background.
I'm talking about rating system you mentioned in your topics. You also provide a rating. You also involve rating system for your organization, for your leadership program.
I know you're asking about the rating system, but I'm still
Yeah, you
struggling.
get it. Yeah, I want to be how you categorize.
I
want to know.
The HR team, I'm in the LOD department, which is a part of HR, but the HR team is the one that the talent management team that has come up with this 9-box. I don't know where it originated from, and I'm not a part of those meetings. I work closely with them on who they identify out of those when we begin soliciting nominations for our high potential programs, because for our high potential programs, it is a nomination process that not everybody who is nominated gets selected for those programs, and they're highly coveted. And there's a lot of pride amongst the employees for those that are selected and get to go through it. We've got a robust alumni group out of it as well.
So with that, excellent. Candace, thank you so much for
Sorry,
sharing that with
didn't
us.
mean to
And giving-
monopolize.
and giving us the view. I think we kind of got two ends of this, right? One is a pretty mature system, and then we were also getting shared with us a system that doesn't really exist yet, that is having to be pushed from the bottom up to read books. So we're kind of getting a sense for what this looks like at the two ends. I need to move ahead because we're going to go in another breakout room here in a second, and we got about 20 minutes left. But let's talk about this whole idea of leadership pipeline for just a second. And I know this is a really busy slide here. The ideas come from a book called The Leadership Pipeline that talks about seven leadership levels. Okay, now this is partly organizational, it's partly a way of looking at it. From the individual contributor, which obviously a company has the most of, to the CEO as that enterprise leader, where there's only one at a time. And in between, there are, in a big company, Canada's company is probably more like this, you might have 7 levels that range from somebody who's a manager of people, that first level, manager, supervisor, to a manager of managers, and then to somebody that leads an entire function. And then you start getting into business leaders. Now here you have P&L responsibilities and group leaders who lead a group of P&Ls. Now this would be a very big company. And then finally the CEO. And the important thing I think there's 2 important things to realize. One is that these jobs are different, right? And just because you're a great manager of people doesn't mean that ultimately you're going to be, that same skill set's going to make you a great leader of a function. So that selection idea sort of has to happen at every level. And I think Candace was talking about that, as they're recognizing who their high potentials are, who they think is capable of jumping 1 or 2 more levels in the, over the next 5 to 10 years. And the second thing to realize, and I think Candace was dropping us on this a little bit too, was that leadership development has to continue to happen, because the things, those skills that you need to be a manager of people, which would be the Brené Brown kinds of things, they're critical, and you need to master those before you move on, but you need to start learning more. I mean, it's a whole different game to start running, a whole different thing to start running a P&L. Now, and so you see the kind of what you do on the right, and then the things that you have to learn to make that transition successful listed off on the left. And I would note that those levels are collapsed a little bit. If you're in a company of 100 people, you probably have 3 levels, right? Those top 3 or 4 are consolidated, and the middle 2 or 3 are consolidated, but you'll still have that idea of going on in different skills and different developmental things to happen at each level. Now, that leads us to this idea of how do you get somebody so they're actually able to function and do the things needed to be successful at that whatever level we're talking about that they're going into. And what you'll find is, there's things that they need to know, but what's really important isn't that they just know it, but that they're actually able to implement and apply those things in their daily work and interaction with all the people around them. And sometimes that's tricky. There's lots of great training videos on LinkedIn. There's books, Brené Brown, Simon Sinek, a lot of great books. But sometimes that you read a book and it's like, but how do I actually do it? It's like I can read a book about baking a cake. That doesn't make me a great baker. Or I can read a book about playing soccer. Doesn't make me a great soccer player. There's the application into that. And that developmental program in the middle is where a lot of the coaching and programs and things come in. So take that example of soccer. You read the book, soccer, you want to be a great player, and think about all the teams, the practice, the coaching, the feedback that has to happen along the way to get you across that gap. It's a big part of what a good development program. I'm sure Candace, in a well-developed, mature system, you have that. It involves a lot of coaching, interaction, as well as formal development programs. There's I want to show this little video to you. This is Elon Musk talking about a problem that exists.
Yeah, I think just generally the path to leadership should not be through
Everybody hear that?
Basically MBA business school situation. It's like it should be kind of work your way up, do useful things, and and there's a bit too much of somebody goes to a high profile MBA school and then kind of parachutes in as the leader, but they don't actually know how things work. They can be good at, say, PowerPoint presentations, something like that, and they can present well, but they don't actually know how things work because they do not, they like parachute in instead of like working their way out. You know,
Yeah,
so
they
they're
didn't,
just-
they never went through an apprenticeship.
Yeah,
that's
that's-
a better word, yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of like just not aware of what's really needed for you know, to make great products. But I think it's just a little bit too much like people look at MBA school as like I want to parachute into being the boss instead of earning it, and like I don't think that's good.
Right. And that's a problem you sometimes see in industry where somebody comes out of a high profile thing and they want to jump right into leading a function, you know, back into our ladder here, instead of learning the basic skills on the way up. And I think we've all seen that. Now, Dave and I were talking in the military, he was Army, Air Force, I was Navy. That doesn't really happen, right? Everybody starts out, you know, on the officer side as a second lieutenant or ensign or something. And, you know, you don't become an admiral without those steps in between. But in industry, I have seen people hired straight in from McKinsey or something and like, oh, you're going to lead a business. And they know all the right words. I mean, this goes to the no-do thing, right? They studied all about it, you know, at Harvard or whatever. But those basic skills of making it happen out on the shop floor and working with individuals, sometimes that doesn't work out so well. And I've seen some guys flame out pretty badly in those cases, right? So you gotta figure out how to make that happen. With that being said, we're down to about 10 minutes, so this is gonna be a short breakout. How in your organization do you evaluate and provide feedback on actual practices, on actually what you see? How is that feedback provided to people? In addition to just, hey, you got great results, you turned in the numbers we expected and things like that. This will be a short room. I'm thinking 5 minutes. We'll get back at 5 of, really couple of quick discussion items, and then we're gonna be concluding here. So let me do another 5 rooms and off you go. All right, welcome back, everyone. Everything, you can hear me okay? Got off mute, got the screen shared, everything's working good. Okay, great. All right, we don't have a whole lot of time here, so I'm interested in one thing where the light bulb went off. You're like, that might be a better way to do it, or I really like what Candace had to say, or something like that. What? Tell me what.
I really
came out
like
before
what
you got
Candace
rid-
had to say. No, Candace mentioned
Troy.
something, and she can elaborate on this. Safety is an excellent.
Harry, it looks like
measure.
you're saying something, but you're muted.
No,
No, I can hear Harry.
Yeah,
can hear Harry
it's not
too.
showing muted, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I hear Harry.
I
I
hear
hear
it.
Harry.
Perhaps
Oh.
someone's selecting not to hear me. What I was saying was that Candace mentioned safety, and that is a really excellent feedback loop for leadership, right? Because think of all the things a leader has to do to ensure
Right.
that.
Safety. Okay. And then you're in the energy business or utility business, it'd be huge. By the way, it was my fault. I didn't turn the speaker back on mine. So I'm like seeing everybody talk. That was on me.
Yeah,
too
specifically
many things.
psychological safety.
Yeah. Psychological safety. Tell us about that really quick.
Yeah, I think when people feel like they're safe, I mean, physical safety, okay, that's a given, but emotional safety is crucial. I mean, whether you're giving or getting feedback.
What does that
know.
mean? Emotional safety, Renee.
Emotional safety meaning is your leader, just cutting the person down, right? Like that. Are they cutting the person down where they can't even receive the feedback anyway, so it shuts them down?
Gotcha.
Or
Right.
are they giving constructive criticism where the person can learn and grow and plus be able to respond
Okay.
and know that they're safe when they respond, whether they agree with the leader or not?
Good. Excellent. Yeah. Critical points for giving and receiving feedback, which is essential to coaching. So thank you for sharing that. All right. We got a couple of minutes left, so let me start to wrap up here. Two final thoughts here. The first is we talked about Drucker's comments. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I got the Pac-Man guy going here. And obviously that's important because, you implement the strategy, execute that. That's how you get results. You don't get results, you don't stay in business that long. But this whole idea of leadership at all levels is crucial. That is what makes your culture. culture is the thousands of interactions that every employee has every day, and everybody experiences culture in their own way. But the primary driver of that tends to be the person they work for, not the CEO, not that guy at the top of the ladder, the pipeline that we talked about, but the person they're working for that they interact with the most every day. To your point, Renee, and if they're not feeling psychological safety, boom, their culture stinks. It's horrible. And then you're going to have turnover and problems like that. So you got to be developing the leaders at all levels. And the second thought I'm just going to leave you with is that good and growing organizations promote from within, not just because they want to, but because they can, because they've developed the pipeline and they've got the people that can step up when needed to grow the business, or because somebody leaves or retires or something like that. If they can't do it, they won't do it. And then they're trying to hire leaders from outside, and that often doesn't work super duper well. That has a high failure rate. All right, I am not going to do this total evaluation one-on-one. We don't have time, but I would encourage you to think about it and jot down in the little journal you keep something where the light bulb went off today, an insight that you picked up, something that you want to go try to apply. Go ahead and write that down on whatever you've got in front of you before it flits out of your, because you're getting ready to go off into another meeting here in about 60 seconds. And the final thing I will leave you with is Ken and I do leadership development. Man, it's based on years of, he was in the Army, I was in the Navy. That was all about leadership. He went to West Point, I went to the Naval Academy. We weren't going to go through that 5 years of being individual contributors. When we graduated, we were out leading sailors or troops in the field. And then we've both had private sector experience where we find out, it's 90% the same and 10% different. What's the 10%? He's got some programs coming up down in Texas and Nashville. These are our open enrollment programs. We also do things for companies, customized, just their people, tuned to whatever level in that pipeline this is oriented for. We do all that kind of stuff. I've got some coming up in Cincinnati. I've got one in November in Dayton, which is at the Air Force Museum, the National Museum of the Air Force, which is really a pretty awesome place. If you want to bring a team to that and bond a little bit, that is a pretty cool place. And we get around and see a lot of the museum. And finally, I've got a book out called Leadership Fusion, where we talk about fusing leadership with operations and that operating system. So that's on Amazon if you want. My contact information is at the bottom of this page. And Ken does these once a month, and most of you guys are regulars. He would love to have you give him some feedback on other things you want to talk about. All right, that being said, I will stay on here as long as anybody wants to stay and talk, but I'll let you get off to your next meeting.